I actually once bought a course on photography and composition. It was a few $1,000s. So it was obviously not cheap. I was obviously not looking at the money. And it was being offered by one of my favorite photographers. And I thought, wow, I would love to learn from them. I really want to learn from them. I wish I could photograph like them. And kid you not, I bought the course, and out of, 20, 30 modules in it, do you know how many I watched? I didn't even finish a single one.
This is your host, Dyutama, but you can call me DJ. And I love to inspire food photographers to dream. I spent 15 years as an architect studying buildings and constructing hospitals before taking the biggest leap of faith of my life, which was setting up a food styling and food photography business right from scratch. If you're a dreamer like me, wanting to start a new photography business or grow your existing food photography business, jump right into a world where I share practical, actionable strategies to improve your photography skills, to work with clients, make more money, all with a fearless mindset. This is the My Food Lens podcast, and we take you one step closer to your dreams. So let's go.
Welcome to another episode of My Food Lens podcast. And before we start, I just want to ask you, have you rated us on your favorite listening platform or not? Come on, man. If you're listening on Spotify, there are stars that you can see below the name of our podcast. Go ahead and rate us on Spotify. Just hit the stars. It'll take you less than 10 seconds. And it'll mean the moon, the universe, the sun, and the stars, and the world to us. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please do the same. There are stars, there are ratings that you can give our podcast. If it has been helpful, if it has been a wonderful experience listening to us, please hit the stars and rate us before you go any further. It really means a lot to us, which is why I emphasize on it so much in every episode. And if you want to go one step further, please spend maybe less than a minute to write 1 or 2 lines of why you love the podcast and post that rating, that review on Apple Podcasts. Apple Podcasts has this feature, and you can totally make a difference to this podcast by helping us reach better guests, making it bigger, growing it, allowing us to share more content just by spending those 30 seconds in writing those 1 or 2 lines on Apple Podcast. It really makes that much of a difference. All right. So it looks like you've done that already. Should we move on? Yeah. Well, thank you if you have. It really, really means a lot. Okay. So today we are going to talk about something that we never talk about. Yep. It's about photography courses and the reason why courses sometimes don't work out for us. In fact, the number one mistake that we make when we invest in a course. So tell me one thing very honestly. How many times have you bought a course, you've gone through it, and then you've left it for some reason or the other? Like you literally did not complete it. Many times, right? Okay, so tell me one more thing. How many times have you bought a course and then you completed it and you thought, what a waste? Quite often, right? It's happened to you, I'm pretty sure. All right, so how many times have you bought a course and you completed it and you still thought, oh, that just really doesn't work for me? Like for some reason, you completed it and it just did not work out for you, right? So there are several scenarios in which we buy a course and we either leave it halfway or we are dissatisfied, or even after we complete it, it just does not work out for us. Now, I want to tell you that I have a confession, basically, that I used to be a course hoarder. You may not believe it, but it's very, very true. I'll be honest. I have spent thousands of dollars on various courses, not just photography, on various courses. And I have a very similar story with most of them, where most of them didn't work out for me. I know it's like, lady, what were you buying? Right? But a lot of them didn't work out. While a lot of them didn't work out, a lot of them did. And I not only completed them, but I also applied them and they were game changers in whatever avenue of life or photography that I was looking to change with that course. It really helped me and it worked out for me. They were game changers, those courses, and I swear by them. I actually give it a lot of thought of why those courses, those 10,000 other courses, didn't work out for me. And I realized there was one thing common in all of them, and that's what we're going to talk about today. And let me tell you, it has nothing to do with money. Whether a course is worth it or not, and the mistake and the reason it doesn't work out has nothing to do with money, nothing to do with how much it cost, nothing to do with how much you invested in it. Money has nothing to do with it. If something has got to do with it, it's you. So let's talk about the number one reason. And the number one reason is that when we buy a certain course, we feel like we might need it, but at that point, we may not have identified our biggest struggle at that moment in time. So, the mistake that we make is that we don't buy based on where we are in our creative journey in that particular time. We don't pay attention to what our immediate goals and our immediate difficulties are. And we either tend to buy a course thinking we will need it, or this is maybe what we need in anticipation, or we're trying to be somewhere and we think that this is what we need, but it's not really where we are in that present moment. Okay, now if you are confused, because this can be confusing, then let me just explain to you, okay? Let's say that you come across a composition course. It's a photography composition, how to create a beautiful composition. All right, that's the course. And you think, wow, like this is fantastic. I can really improve my composition and I can create those jaw dropping large compositions that I see on Instagram. So you go and you buy that course because you want to improve your composition. And you're going through that course, you're trying out the techniques, but your photos are not improving. And no matter what composition technique you apply, no matter what composition you make, it still doesn't pop. And then you realize that it's actually not the composition. This whole thing, the whole time, was nothing to do with your composition skills. What your photography was missing at that point was powerful editing. What you needed first was an editing course so that irrespective of your compositions, irrespective of what you were using, maybe a DSLR or even a phone for your photography, you could edit your photos to make them so powerful and so impactful that once you layered it with the next layer of knowledge like composition, it would have taken it to another level. But right now you invested in a composition course without spending the time to identify that at that minute, that point in your journey, you were not struggling with composition. You wanted to make big composition, but you weren't really struggling with it. And the real missing piece of the puzzle was editing. And what you really needed at that point to take your photography to the next level was an editing course, and it was not a composition course. So, yes, at some point you would have probably invested in a composition course, but that timing wasn't right. And what happens is that when we buy courses which are not in line with where our skills need to be met or where we intend to take our photography, then we continue to struggle. And we continue to think that, oh, this course is not good because you would keep trying the compositions. But hello, your photos would not have popped because it was never about the composition. It was about the editing, but you skipped a step. Somewhere at the back of your mind knew that editing was lacking, but you saw this shiny composition course and you just wanted to jump and start creating those large compositions like your favorite photographer, maybe. And that's it. At that point, that's not what you needed. And because the composition course was not helping you, because that was not what you needed at that point, you continued to struggle and you thought the course was not good. And then you started doubting your own abilities. And then you start doubting, you probably at some point also started doubting the course instructor. And you thought, I'm never going to buy from them. They don't know how to teach. I've got no results. You bought their course at a time when it wasn't your highest priority. It did not take your photography to the next level because that is not what you needed at that time. I recently spoke to a food photographer who had bought some digital products from me. All right. And when I was talking to her, she was just beginning. She was just setting out in the market. When I was talking to her, I asked her, but weren't you concerned that it's expensive? Were you ready to spend this money? And you know what she said? She said, honestly, I don't even remember how expensive it was. I didn't even look at the cost at that time. I knew that I needed them. And I just went in because that was exactly what I needed to take my business to the next level. That is what my biggest struggle was in that minute. And you know what? The moment she purchased those products, she actually put them into practice and her business began to roll. If at that point she would have bought a photography course, a composition course, maybe she would have bought a business course, but it was not really pertaining to the stage at where she was in her business, it would have never gotten her the results that she needed. But she got and she invested in a product that was going to help her right in exactly where she was standing in her journey in that minute. And it worked wonders for her. So let me tell you, like, actually, there are many different reasons why we may not choose the right course for us at the right time. I'll tell you what happened to me. On this 10,000 courses, like, talk to the course holder, she'll tell you her story, and here it goes. So, this course holder, me, myself, I actually once bought a course on photography and composition. It was a few $1,000s. So it was obviously not cheap. I was obviously not looking at the money. And it was being offered by one of my favorite photographers. And I thought, wow, I would love to learn from them. I really want to learn from them. I wish I could photograph like them. And kid you not, I bought the course and out of, 20, 30 modules in it, do you know how many I watched? I didn't even finish a single one. Maybe I watched like one or two. And I was like, I just really had absolutely no interest in going back to it. And I never went back to it. And you know why? It was not my requirement at that time. I bought it thinking it's from my favorite photographer. I would love to learn from them. But I didn't realize that I actually had moved on much ahead in my photography career. And at that time, instead of photography techniques and trying to make a certain style of composition or learning photography composition from someone else, my needs were more business related, and that's why that interest just wasn't there. One was because I had moved on and my requirements were business related. And two, even though I might have liked to learn some of their techniques, there's always something to learn from someone. It was not my immediate requirement. In that minute, that is not the technique I needed to learn. I needed to learn something about business. So, within a few months of that, I actually went and I enrolled in a business mastermind. And guess what? I walked out finishing the mastermind. I had client projects lined up. I was negotiating license and fees, and I had literally put everything I learned into practice and I was taking action. And when I walked out, when we finished that mastermind, that round of mastermind, I literally walked out thinking, what a life changing experience. What a great instructor. Whatever they create, I will come back to them. What a mind blowing course this was. I would recommend it to anyone else. Why? Why? Because I took it at exactly that point in my career or in my creative journey when I needed that knowledge, that information, and that training desperately, desperately, boss. That's the keyword. You have to buy a course in desperation, in the desperation to learn that particular thing, not where you were 6 months earlier, not where you want to be in a year, but in that particular second, in that particular moment. So, if you're a hobbyist photographer and you are ready to invest in a course, look at your biggest struggle. Which part of photography will take your photography to the next level? Is it learning artificial light? Is it about creating minimalistic composition? Is it editing? Is it food styling? Nail down that one thing that is absolutely missing in your photography and you need it in that minute, and then go and invest there. Now, let's say you're a professional photographer. Identify your biggest struggle too. Is it reaching out to clients? Is it finding more work? Is it about learning a particular style of photography? Maybe it's about learning videos. All right. So that's your struggle. That's what you are just like, it's frustrating you right now. If you only knew that little bit, if you only had that little knowledge, if you only had that one skill, it would be the next leap in your business. Once you identify that, go and enroll yourself in someone's course who's offering exactly that. It's about just really drilling down to your need in that minute. When you're ready for the next step, there'll always be a course being offered for that. So don't ever buy in a state of, oh my God, I'm not going to get a chance to buy this again. Buy it from a place of, oh my God, I really need to learn this now, like today, this minute, like yesterday. You remember last year, right? That I went through the severe phase of burnout. And in that process of healing, I actually realized that one of my biggest problems, one of my biggest struggles was time management. And that was what was causing the overwhelm, overwork, overtiredness, and just overdoing everything. And I actually went and I bought a time management course because after racking my brain about what had caused the burnout, I really nailed it down to that one issue of not being able to schedule my tasks or prioritize my work. And that's how everything went out of hand. And that's why I collapsed. So once I drilled down that, you know, that was the one thing I went and I bought a time management course. Now, at that time, I could have actually gone and I could have thought, oh, I'm going through this phase. Maybe I'm having a creative block. Maybe I should buy a course or I should invest in something that will help me revive my creativity and help me come out of that burnout. But maybe that was something I needed a little bit ahead. But in that minute, not really. So, what really worked for me was identifying that underlying reason for what I was experiencing. And I penned it down so that I could just learn one thing that would completely change the way I operate and that would take me away from feeling exhausted and overwhelmed. Because if I did not address this issue, then no matter how many courses I took on coming out of creative blocks, I would have still stumbled upon a creative block if I, on a foundational level, did not know how to manage my time. I mean, come on, right? So that course was truly life changing. It was needle moving for me, because it really got me out of the spiral, of the inefficient spiral that I was. And I did not look at the cost of the course at all because I was desperate to find a course on time management. And I bought it because I needed it so badly. And I completed the course and I put it into practice and I healed myself. And so far, I have never let burnout return because I had diligently followed what I learned in that course because I needed it, right? So you see how important it is for us to identify what is the most needle moving investment we need at a particular time. So don't just go and buy a course just because you think, I'm going to need it later. I think I need it. Don't just buy a course because it's on sale. We are all guilty of that. Don't just buy a course for a skill that you don't really need at that time. And don't just buy a course because your favorite photographer is offering it. All right. You buy a course because you need it and you need it in that minute. And that's how you make sure that you get your money's worth. Because if you need it at that time, you will immediately put it into practice, whatever you learn. And you cannot put something into practice if you're not in a place to apply it and take action on it. All right. So the next time you want to invest in a course, think about how desperately you need it, whether it's the single most learning that will actually take you to the next level, like be it photography, be it business, whatever it is, make sure you buy what you need in that moment, in that phase of your creative path. And whatever you buy, put it into practice immediately. Identify your immediate needs and identify what is the one thing that is missing, that you're struggling with, that is not making your photos pop, that is not bringing you more clients, that is not inching you towards your dream. And just keep this at the back of your mind that it's never about money. It's never about money. It's not about the budget. It's about what you need and how badly you need it in that minute. This should help you decide whether a course is right for you or not and whether it will work out for you or not. So don't make the mistake that we have all made. I've made 10,000 times. All right. Don't make that mistake of buying something that you don't need in that minute. If you found this episode helpful, head straight to your listening platform and rate it immediately. Hit the stars, write a one-liner review or a two-liner review, and help us make this podcast bigger and better for you. If you're guilty of buying courses that you didn't need, if you want to confess something to me, maybe you're a course holder too, you can always send me an email on hello@myfoodlens.com, or you can come secretly DM me on Instagram at Dyutama_myfoodlens. I'm there for you. And don't worry, this comes from a fellow course holder. So I'm happy to hear your story. All right. You go have a great day. I'll see you next week with another episode. Until then, bye bye.